Welcome to Military Wife, Life, and Strife, the podcast where we get open and honest about all the struggles of military life. And welcome to the community that has your back no matter what. Come get real about the strife with me, your host, a military wife. My name is Heather, and today I want to get real with my friend Annie. Annie is a friend from church, and we also go to a women's Bible study together. She has been through a lot in the past few years. I feel like, she is 21 years old, and she has been through more in the past few years of her life than I feel like most people go through in a lifetime. And she is just so incredibly resilient and at peace. She has learned so much through all of this. I feel like the world needs more of what Annie has. So I'm really excited to talk to her today. I am really excited for you all to hear from her. Let's welcome her on. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Heather.
Hello. Welcome to Military Wife, Life, and Strife. I am really excited to dive into lots of things with you today. Um, but first of all, just as a little intro, tell us how you are connected with the military.
Well, first, thank you for having me. And my husband is in the military. He has been in for a little over a year and a half now. So I'm still pretty new to it, but we're figuring it out.
I love that. Also, I forgot to ask, can you introduce your friend who's with you
Oh, of
today?
course. This is Moose. He
Moose is going
is
to join
a
us.
mostly black-mouth cur puppy. He's going to be a year and a half old in April.
He's so cute. He's so sweet. Thank you for joining us, Moose. Okay. So have you been officially a military wife for a year and a half as well?
No. I have
Okay.
officially been a year for I've been a military wife for so he's been active duty for a little over a year and a half, and I've been a military wife for a little under a year and a half.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
there's
So
about
he
a
just had a couple months.
yeah, I think there's about a 4 month crossover where we were engaged but not married yet while he was active duty.
Gotcha. Okay. And so this is your first duty station, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so I know it hasn't been very long, not even a year and a half, but can you tell me so far, what is your favorite thing so far about the military?
I think my favorite thing so far has been the people that I've met. I've gotten to meet people from all over the world. And that's been really fun, getting to know people, branching out a little bit. I was born and raised in very rural Vermont, and that's where I've been. I went to school up there, started college up there. So it's been nice to branch out a little bit, meet people from lots of different places. I've learned a lot.
Yes, I love that too. I feel like it's an experience I wish more people would get to have, but but also maybe not just have everyone join the
Yes.
military to have that experience.
Yeah.
It's not a good reason to join the military, but it's a good
Yes.
side effect of being a
Yeah.
part of the military.
Yes.
Okay.
One of the good
Um
parts.
yes, definitely. And there's definitely good parts, but there's also as life goes, there's strife everywhere we go. So I
Yes.
know you have seen a lot in a short period of time, but I'd like for you to share with us some of your strife that you have recently overcome.
Yes. Um, we'll start about probably almost 7 years ago now. I started having headaches when I was a sophomore in high school. So it was 2018. To give everyone a little idea of that, I would just turned 15 recently. I'm 21 now, and I dealt with headaches all day, every day for
Wow.
5 years, a little
Oh
over
my
5 years. It was a
gosh.
couple months over. Um, And in that time, I had other medical issues as well. That was not the only thing I was dealing with, but that was the big thing. And
Yeah.
I finished high school. So I did the last 3 years of my high school because it started in October. So I did most of my sophomore year with it, all of my junior year, and all of my senior year, which was also marked by COVID because
Of
all the
course.
lockdowns happened uh spring semester of my junior year of high school. So my
Oh my
senior year
gosh.
and end of my junior year were all marked by COVID. Um, and I was dealing with the headache at the time. I had a surgery unrelated to the headache my senior year of high school. So that was a lot. And then I went right into college the next fall. I didn't take a break. I just jumped right into it. And that
Did
was
you
a
just kind
lot.
of get used to the headaches, or like was it
Yeah.
like in pain every day? Like,
So my pain scale is very skewed now. Um, so I was living with a headache that on a what I call now a normal person pain scale because mine is so skewed from being in so much pain. I had a headache that was probably around a 7 on a normal pain scale every single day.
wow. Oh my gosh.
That was my normal. And I
Yikes.
was doing school with that. My high school actually changed to the International Baccalaureate program, which is, I don't know if you know this, it's slightly different than AP, but it's
Yeah.
very similar. Um, so I was taking some difficult classes, trying to finish high school, but also dealing with the headache. And then, like I said, I jumped right into college. Um, and that was a lot. Uh,
And
I,
you were in
s-
college full time?
yes, I was full time and I was dealing with some mental health stuff as well. So probably about the first month of college, I was having panic attacks every single day,
Wow.
sometimes multiple times a day. And it wasn't until towards the end of that first month, that I actually had a panic attack in front of one of my professors. And she submitted what they called a care report or something like that.
Okay.
But basically, it meant that she contacted the mental health services on campus on my behalf and was like, listen, she needs some help. And then the next day, I had a panic attack in front of a different one of my professors. And she sat me down
Oh
in
my
her office
gosh.
and said, I'm going to dial the number and I'll give you the phone and I will step out of the office, but you are making an appointment with mental health services on campus right now before you leave.
I love that your school has that program
Yes.
to like advocate for you and that obviously your teachers cared, which is really good.
Yes. It was very helpful. It really changed the course of my freshman year of college. So I was trying to adjust to college life. I was living away from home for the first time, and I was only an hour away, and I was right by all of my doctors. Um, because the hospital was actually part of the college that I was going to. So I went to the University of Vermont and was being seen at the University of Vermont Medical Center.
Okay.
So that was very helpful. But I went through freshman year of college and it was rough. It was an adjustment, but we made it through. I went through sophomore year of college doing a lot of planning. I actually met my now husband my sophomore year of college, late in the fall semester. Then we got engaged in May so right after the spring semester ended, we ended up getting engaged, and then we got married in October. So we got married about 10 months after we met each other. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes. But I found out about a month before we got married that I was going to be having brain surgery.
Wow. So in this
And
time period, like sophomore, junior, senior year of high school, freshman and sophomore year of college, are you having medical appointments? Like you're trying to get
yep,
answers about it? Okay. Okay. Wow.
yep, I was having medical appointments. In high school, I actually had to have all of my doctors or all of my teachers, sorry, we all had to sit down. I actually had a 504 plan my senior year of high school
Oh, okay.
because it would transfer over to college. But essentially, we all had to sit down and we said, listen, I don't know how much school I'll miss. It might be a lot, but I need you guys to help me graduate. And they all were super willing to help me as much as they could. And
That's so good.
I graduated, and my parents
You did it.
and my sisters, I love them. They helped me so much. And then also all through college. So in college, so I was about an hour away from home. So my parents were coming to most of my doctor's appointments, but not all of them. So sometimes I would finish class and then just walk over to the hospital and have a doctor's appointment before going back to my dorm.
Wow.
And it was difficult. It's not something that a lot of people deal with when they're
Yeah.
in college, is having all these doctor's appointments, especially once it got towards the last couple of semesters before I knew I was going to have surgery. We started talking about it a little bit more. And so I actually
Mhm.
went to some of my professors a couple different semesters. I just went up to them and I was like, hey, I might have to have surgery and I might be out for a couple of weeks. I don't know. I'll
Mhm.
let you know when I find out anything. And I went to them with that as early as I could so that in
Okay.
case it interfered with the semester, they could help me out.
That's good.
But so I found out I was going to have this surgery. It's not technically, it's technically a brain surgery. I don't really like to call it a brain surgery because it's more of a skull thing. But I
Okay.
had what's called a Chiari malformation. So my brain squished out the base of my skull. And to be
Wow.
classified as a Chiari malformation, it needs to be 5 millimeters, I believe, outside the base of your skull. My brain was 15 millimeters, so it was about a centimeter and a half outside
Oh
the base of
my
my skull, which is
gosh.
not good, but they
Yeah.
said for most of the time that that was not what was causing my headaches because my headaches were in the
Interesting.
wrong spot in my head. My headaches were all in the front, and Chiari headaches are usually in the back.
In the back. Yeah.
And there are certain symptoms that you see with the Chiari that I wasn't getting until much, much later. And that was my sophomore and junior year of college, is when I started having a lot of these
Oh, okay.
symptoms. And that's
Okay.
when my neurosurgeon decided I needed to have this surgery.
Gotcha. And so it was on the skull in the back.
Yes. So what they
Wow. Okay.
actually do is they actually had to remove a piece of my skull.
Oh my gosh.
So I have a piece of my skull about the size of a quarter that's missing from the back of my head. And I have about a
Interesting.
5 to 6 inch scar up the back of my head now.
Interesting. Can you, is it like within your hairline? Can you see it at all or not really?
It's it's pretty much all within my hairline. They actually
Okay.
had to shave a strip up the back of my head, which those hairs are still regrowing.
Really?
They're still,
I was gonna say they could look really gnarly if you did one of those like undercuts. You can shave the back of
yeah,
your head. You could see it. That'd be awesome.
yes. Uh, I thought that's what they were gonna have to do at first. I thought they were gonna have to
But just a
shave my
little
whole
bit.
head,
Yeah.
but no, they just had to shave a strip up the back, which somehow felt worse at the time than if they had just shaved my whole head.
Shave the whole head. Yeah.
I was like, at least that point, it would all be the same. Instead, I just
Yeah.
had to strip up the back.
But in the
But
back, no one really notices, right? You're good.
exactly, you just leave your hair down a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So what was the recovery like for that brain surgery or skull surgery?
Yes, skull surgery, brain surgery. So they said it would be 6 weeks of absolutely nothing,
Okay.
just laying at home, doing nothing. But I will also say that what complicated this even more was so my husband and I got married in October,
Okay.
and my surgeon had told me in September that I was going to have surgery or that we would seriously
Okay.
talk about having surgery. A sentence she then followed up with, but I'm going on maternity leave in a week.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll talk about it when I get back in December.
Okay.
So I went October, finished wedding planning, had the wedding, all of that. My husband moved down here. I was still in school. I was actually doing 19 credits that semester,
Oh my gosh.
which is the maximum we could do without having to get a
Mhm.
waiver by the
Yeah.
school. So that was definitely a choice on my part.
That's an incredible choice. Well done.
Yes. So she then went on maternity leave, and I didn't talk to her until December. But when I first talked to her, it was actually in the hospital because I was hospitalized finals week that semester.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So it was, my husband makes fun of me because he says it was probably the stupidest decisions I could have made that week that led to this. But I sneezed at work one day because I was also working about 20 hours a week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Because you
And
you need more things to
yeah,
pile on. You need
exactly.
more stuff to do. Yeah. Wedding
Exactly. I was
planning,
like,
19 hours, appointments, and 20 hours of
the
work, of
headache.
course.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
boring. And I also could barely swallow because my swallowing function was not working properly.
Oh
That's
my
part of the reason I needed
gosh.
the surgery. I was starting to have brainstem
Okay.
issues, so I was having trouble with my balance, I was having numbness, and I was having trouble
Wow.
swallowing. So that's why I needed
Okay.
this surgery. But I sneezed, and then the numbness got worse, the headaches got worse. I was super dizzy, I almost passed out, and I was at
Oh
work
my
at the
gosh.
time. I then proceeded to finish the work shift, go home,
Oh my
wake up the
gosh.
next morning, walk to the exam proctoring center, which also was where I worked, take an exam, go home, take two exams online, take a shower. I'm not sure if I passed out after the shower, but that's when I decided I needed to go to the emergency room. So I texted my two roommates because we were living in an apartment together, and one of them had been my roommate the year previous, so she knew about all of my medical issues and she had seen me
Okay.
almost pass out several times. The other roommate had not, and that is the one that came home
Oh, no.
and had to drive me to the emergency room because
Oh
I
my
did not want
gosh.
her to call an ambulance.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And so then I was in the emergency room and I was hospitalized for about a week, and that happened to be the end of the finals week. So I only missed one exam,
Oh my
and that
goodness.
professor told me that he would use the work I had done previously in this semester. I was taking American Sign Language that semester, and I did submit a video assignment from my hospital room.
No way. That's
I
amazing.
did. I figured that it was just going to be easier to submit the assignment, just record it and submit it, rather than try to explain to my professor that I was in the hospital and get documentation and all of that.
Yeah.
I just figured I would just do the assignment, submit it, and be done.
Did
I
you,
got
I mean,
100% on that.
could you
Oh
tell
yeah,
you were
you
in
could
a
tell.
hospital?
I had an IV in my arm that was visible when I would move my hands to try to do the ASL,
And
and you
did your
could see the
professor
machines
say
behind
anything?
me. I got a 100 on it. So,
Good. Well done.
yes.
That's awesome.
But yes, and so then I went home and was just trying to get the appointments kept getting rescheduled. They kept getting pushed. So my surgeon that I was seeing, she at least at the time was the only pediatric neurosurgeon in the state of Vermont. And
Wow.
not only that, she's the only neurosurgeon in the state that specialized in Chiari malformations. But what that meant is that anytime a kid needed a surgery. There was one time my appointment got rescheduled because my surgeon had to perform surgery on an infant.
Oh my goodness.
That's one of those situations where you feel bad for feeling bad about your appointment being
Yeah.
rescheduled because
Yeah.
you're like,
It's
oh my
understandable.
gosh, my appointment was rescheduled. But she's currently in the OR performing surgery on a literal child on
Yeah.
their brain. So I can't really feel bad
Yeah.
about it. But
That is like
I
a lot of emotions at the same time. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of hard to deal with that. But I eventually got a date for my surgery. And like I said, my husband had already come down here. So my surgeon actually wrote a letter for my husband to give to his command to try to get emergency leave.
Wow.
So my husband was actually granted emergency leave for 6 weeks to come up to help me with my surgery because
Good.
my parents were not going to be able to be fully available for the full 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And so my husband came up and he actually was still working during the time. He was doing
Of course.
not a ton of stuff,
Because
but he was still
military
doing a little
never
bit
turns
of
off.
stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so my surgeon said it was going to be 6 weeks. And I told her, that's great because that will end March 1st. And I start my new classes on the 11th. And she said, please no. But if you have to, be careful and do as few
Okay.
classes as possible.
Meaning not 19 hours again, right?
Yes. And I transferred schools. And so
Okay.
I was starting in a new system where I was doing their 8 hour session, their 8 week sessions
Okay.
of two classes at a time. So I was
Okay.
going to be
That's
starting
better.
two classes on the 11th, and we were going to go from there, build up, see how many I could do. My surgeon was not particularly happy that I did that, but I did it.
Understandable.
And they normally tell you you'll be in the hospital for, I want to say it was 3 to 5 days right after the surgery to recover. You'll be in the ICU for a day, and then they'll move you to the neurology unit. I was out of the hospital, fully discharged in less than 48 hours after my surgery.
Wow. That's incredible.
I was I was in the ICU for 24 hours, like you are required to be, and then I was moved to the neurology unit and everyone came in to see me that had to see me. They looked at the incision site. Everything looked great. They sent me home. And
And so
I
at this
was,
point, did all your symptoms stop right after the surgery? Like the headache stop, the numbness,
yes.
everything?
So the headaches is a little hard to tell exactly when that stopped. I assume it was right after the surgery. I was very high. You can ask anyone
Makes
in my
sense.
family. You can ask my in-laws. I called every single one of my in-laws when I was high on drugs after my surgery, right when I woke up. I
Oh my
sent a
gosh.
text to one of my sister-in-laws because she didn't answer the phone. All of my husband's family wrestles. And so I sent a text to one of my sister-in-laws that said, you're a bad, but you scare me sometimes because I know you could beat me up if you wanted to.
That's so funny.
I don't remember sending the text, but I've seen it in our text thread and she's told me about
Yeah.
it. So that was a whole weird time, but I was discharged in less than 48 hours. I went home, we started the recovery. I could eat again. That was fixed right after surgery.
Wow. Okay.
I actually have pictures on my phone of the breakfast that I got the next morning. I took a before picture to send to my parents, and I was like, I'll tell you how much I eat or how much I can eat. And then I sent them a picture afterwards of all the food gone because it was the first like full meal I'd been able to eat in several months.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I had been surviving off of mac and cheese, applesauce, and sometimes chicken nuggets,
Oh my gosh. These need
doing
to be
19
like
hours.
soft, easy to swallow. Oh my
Exactly.
goodness. Dang.
Exactly. If something was too thin, like water, sometimes I couldn't swallow because it was too thin. But also if
Mm.
something was too thick, I would have trouble swallowing it. So we had to find that sweet spot,
Interesting.
and the sweet spot for
Yeah.
me was applesauce.
Okay.
So
Yikes.
I was discharged in less than 48 hours. I went home.
Okay.
My husband was there. Actually, we had moose. My husband had gotten moose in December, and so I had surgery in January. So he brought the puppy with him.
Puppy. Oh,
He was he was born in October. He was actually born a couple days after our wedding. We didn't know that. We didn't know he
that's
existed.
sweet.
So the puppy was there. Bless my sister. She actually did a big part in potty training him because,
Because you're recovering from brain surgery,
yes, and
that's
my husband was
no
in the
small feat.
hospital with me. So with the recovery, I everything was going great as great as it can be after you've had that kind of surgery because
Hmm.
the main issue that I had for the first week or so was just the in order to get to your skull, they have to cut through every muscle in your neck.
Wow.
So I could not, I mean, I could move my head and I could move my neck, but it was incredibly painful.
Okay.
And that was the worst part of the recovery until I woke up one morning and I rolled over and I woke up my husband and I was like, hey, my pillow's wet. I was like, my
Oh
pillow's not
no.
supposed to be wet. And we were like, yeah, that's really weird. I think it was around the same time. It might have been a little bit before that we had to figure out an issue with my pain medication because a doctor had told me the wrong information. So I actually wasn't taking enough pain medication. So I was in even
Okay.
more pain than I was supposed to be.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then this was happening. And so I had to have my hair in two braids for the first part of the recovery because it kept the hair off the incision site.
Okay.
But what ended up happening was one of my braids, because there was one piece of hair that crossed over the incision site, and the braid that it went into ended up soaked by the end of a day or partway through a day. And my mom or me, one of us called my surgeon and was like, "Hey, what's going on? Like this isn't normal." And they asked us to send a picture of it and asked us a little bit more information about it and ended up telling me I needed to go to the emergency room because they thought I was having a CSF leak. So I was having cerebrospinal fluid leaking out of my head.
Oh my gosh.
This was about 2 weeks after surgery.
Whoa. Okay. At first, when you said your pillow was wet, I thought it was like soaked with blood or something. But I feel like that's
No.
s- spinal fluid. That's almost more serious than like blood coming out of the incision. Like your spinal fluid is coming right out.
Yeah.
What? So what did they have to do did they have to go back in or what did they have to do to fix that?
So what they ended up having to do is they actually had to overstitch. So I'd
Okay.
had dissolving stitches put in first thing after surgery. That's what they did.
Okay.
But they had to, with spinal fluid leaking out, obviously these dissolving stitches are now getting wet and they're not holding
Okay.
it tight enough. So they needed to
Oh,
restitch that, and I was admitted back into the hospital for observation because the main issue, if it didn't stop leaking, is there's a potential for bacteria to get in and I could get an infection in my brain,
wow.
essentially.
Oh my gosh.
Because with this surgery, they're not just
That's
dealing with
scary.
the skull, they also took off a little part of my C1 vertebrae
Okay.
and also removed excess connective tissue in or like around my brain
Okay.
and put a patch in my dura, which is that innermost layer of your skull or your skin. So they
Okay.
put a patch because it's the one right between your, sorry, no, the dura is the layer right after the brain. And
Okay.
they took a piece of the innermost layer of skin right on top of the skull to put a patch in it.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a little
I think I
confusing.
understand.
Yes, it's a bit confusing. There were a lot of little things that they did.
Hmm.
And some of them, like the connective tissue piece, I didn't actually know that was even a possibility until
Yeah.
after surgery. And they were like, hey, we also did this because it's just a thing they do sometimes. It's something they see
Yeah.
with the Chiari malformation is that they have an
Okay.
excess connective tissue piece, but they needed to monitor me to make sure I didn't get an infection and make sure it stopped leaking.
Hmm.
So I was in the hospital for 3 days. I was actually in the hospital longer with this than I was right after my surgery.
Wow.
And it was mostly just because they needed it to stop leaking for a certain amount of time before I could go home.
Okay.
And then I did get sent home and it was fine from there. I decided I wanted to do physical therapy to try to help my recovery go a little bit faster. That was not
Okay.
something my surgeon said I needed to do, but she said it was something I could do if I wanted to. So I was doing that. I started feeling pretty good. I didn't have my driver's license. I had my permit, but I did not have my license yet. And a couple days before my 4 week follow-up, because they needed to see me 2 weeks after I was released from the hospital the second time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, so a couple days before that, I had started practicing driving again in like parking lots, so nothing. I'm not like out on the road, unable to turn my
Yeah.
head or anything. I was just driving in parking lots with one of my parents. Little bits because I knew I was going to need to try to get my license before I left Vermont, or else I was going to have to try to transfer my permit
Oh,
here
here.
so that I could get my license.
Oh my gosh. So you wanted to get it done while you were still there,
I wanted to get it done in Vermont so I wouldn't have to
which
go through the
makes
process of
sense.
transferring it.
But right after brain surgery. So you were saying and this is at the point you can't fully turn your head, right?
I could turn it most of the way, but I wasn't 100% there yet.
Okay. Okay.
So I then go to the 4 week follow-up, and my surgeon, she looked at everything, she took the stitches out, and then looked at me and said, "So you still want to move?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm planning on moving as soon as the 6 weeks are up, as soon as you clear me." And again, this is the 4 week follow-up after my surgery. And she said, "You could move now if you want." I was like, "Okay, so I'm like good to go then." And she was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do everything." She's like, "You just can't lift more than 20 pounds for the next couple of weeks." We left there. I scheduled an appointment at the DMV and I got my license the Tuesday of the next week.
Oh my gosh.
And because I took my
That's
driving
so
test.
awesome.
And I was just hoping I wasn't going to have to parallel park.
Yeah.
And I didn't. There was not a
Okay,
spot that
good.
they had set up for me to parallel park, so I didn't have to parallel park. It was great. I did get a bloody nose on the ride home. Just, I don't know why. Just
Is
got a
that
bloody nose on the way
related
home from that. I
to
don't think
the
so.
surgery?
I
That's
just
so
get bloody
random.
noses. I
Oh, okay.
get very
Okay.
frequent bloody noses, especially in the winter.
Okay.
I've almost had to have a spot in my nose cauterized because I was getting so many bloody noses.
Oh my gosh.
But that's a whole nother story.
That's crazy. So
So,
you're newlyweds. Your husband is there for the recovery
yep.
of this brain surgery. You're 4 weeks post surgery. And are you guys like packing to leave or like how is that? Are you like ready to go? You just need to go.
We were packing. I had been packing a little bit. My sisters had been helping me. But then once my husband was up, he was helping me pack because we were actually trying to pack the things out of my childhood bedroom. So
Oh,
we
okay.
finished
Yes.
packing. My parents helped us pack a little bit. We packed up the car and we drove down here. We actually stopped at his parents' house because they were
Okay.
sort of on the way. And we saw them for a couple of days because we had the extra little bit of time.
Yeah.
And then we came down here. The first time merging onto a like real big highway was about 4.5 weeks post surgery. I ended up driving through, trying to remember which city it was. It might have been Nashville. There's a spot where it goes from like 2 or 3 lanes to suddenly it's like six, and then you need to be in a specific one.
Yeah.
Is very
That's always
stressful.
terrifying. Yes.
Yes.
And especially, so I don't know if you feel this as well, but where we currently live, this is a fairly quiet town and there's not any real big highways. So now when we get on a real highway, we're like, oh my gosh, why are there so many lanes? It's so much. So yeah,
Yes.
that is terrifying. Um,
Yes.
okay. So you have brain surgery and then you move across the country. No big deal.
Yep, no big
What
deal.
was what was your like resolve like? Like how were you feeling during all of this? Because that to me seems like a lot to go through that seems
I was
stressful.
terrified.
Yes. Okay.
I
Good.
was
I would
absolutely
be.
terrified. Um, my husband
Oh,
would be able to tell you about it, but the night before my brain surgery, I had a full-blown panic attack. I was convinced I was going to die in the surgery. I
Yeah.
remember the first words that I said when I woke up from surgery, still in the operating room. But I was so convinced I was going to die in the surgery that the first thing I did when I woke up was I grabbed one of the nurse's hands that I had seen pre-surgery. Her name was Kira. And I remember that my first words after the surgery was I grabbed her hand and I said, Kira. I was like, I didn't die. And she looks at me and she goes, No, honey, you didn't die. You're still alive. It's
Oh,
all good. We're going to transfer you to the ICU soon.
oh my
That
gosh.
is how convinced I was that I was going to die in this
Yeah.
surgery. And then, like a month later, I'm packing up my whole life, moving with my husband,
Starting a whole new
28 hours
adventure.
away from my parents, new
Yeah.
place, don't know anybody, away from all of my friends, and knowing my husband was going to be sent on this deployment rotation.
That's right. So wait, this is right now, this is like March of last year. So
Yep,
not even
it's
like
not even a
11
year
months
ago.
ago.
I haven't actually lived down here for a full year yet. My husband has, but I haven't.
Okay. So then you get here and then he deploys. How soon? They left what in like
So,
June-ish? Oh wait,
so
there's more.
yeah, there's more.
Yes. Okay.
I wish the next piece was he deployed. It's not. So we get down here in March, or I get down here in March. In April or late March, they told him he was going to have to go to a school to be the unit movement officer or
Okay.
get that training so he could be one of them.
Gotcha.
That happened. That ended up happening in April. So he was like, listen, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks in April. And I was like, great. You're missing my 21st.
Oh
What a way to
no.
start the military life.
Oh
Love
my
this.
gosh.
My sister actually came down,
That's
so
the
I
way of
didn't have to
saying
spend.
welcome to the military. That's a
Exactly.
beautiful way for it to happen.
So I did not have to spend my birthday alone. My sister came
Okay,
down.
good.
I barely knew anybody here.
Yeah.
Um, so he was gone for 2 weeks in April, came home. We had all of May together. That was great. We moved apartments on June 1st
That's right.
because we wanted to be a little bit closer to base so I could be closer to base while he was gone.
Yeah.
I didn't feel super safe at the other apartment, especially the idea of being alone there. So we moved to where we are now on June 1st. That was a Saturday. That is important because on June 3rd, the following Monday, he needed to be in Texas at the port to do port operations
Oh my gosh.
for
Okay.
2 weeks. He came home during on the weekend because they didn't have a ton to do.
Okay.
And then once port operations were done, he came home. That following weekend, I believe, I don't remember exactly how the dates line up, but somewhere in there in June, we had to go to New Orleans on a 4-day pass because he needed to go get his passport same day because he had not had time
Oh no.
to go any other time.
Oh my gosh.
And then he deployed like later that
Okay.
week.
Okay. So, Annie,
Yeah.
within this is like a 6 month time period
hmm
of
6 month
like,
time period.
or maybe like 8 months from like wedding, finals, hospitalization, surgery, hospital again, cleared, get your driver's license right after brain surgery,
Yes.
drive across the country, and then welcomed into the military with all the trainings and goings
All the
here and
joys
there.
that
That
come with
is
it. Yes.
that like hearing you to explain it all is incredible, but then realizing this is all within 6 months ish that all happened.
hmm
That is incredible. And now, okay, so I think I met you, it was after the summer. He'd already been gone a couple months, and like you've just always had
Yes.
this positive spirit about you. And I would have never known all the things that you have been through in this past year. So tell me, how is it that you are the way you are? Like you're I mean, I described you, I know I told you, like you just seem so resilient and so at peace. And I love that about you. And I will also say, like, not everyone that seems at peace is always like that calm on the inside. So I know that like
Yeah.
looks can be deceiving, but like you really have such a peace about you, and it's very impressive, especially with everything you've been through and how young you are. I say that as a compliment, not as like a
Yeah.
you know what I mean, not as like a slam, but like you've done so much and conquered so much as well. So tell me, how are you the way that you are, so like at peace?
There's a couple different parts to it. One is that I don't really have another option. That's the one side of it. And I say that because when you deal with chronic pain or any chronic health issue, one of the phrases that you'll hear a lot from people that don't understand what you're dealing with, or I guess how you're dealing with it, is a lot of people will say, "Oh my gosh, I could never do that,"
Yeah.
especially when you're in it. In college one year, I was so fed up with people telling me that I actually looked at someone when they said that to me and said, "What's my other option? I
Yeah.
die?" Because in my head, I was like, I either deal with the pain or I have to die. Those are
Yeah.
my only two options. So, to a certain extent, that's kind of how I get through some of it, is just what's the other option? You're
Yeah.
either going to deal with it or or what?
Yeah.
And that or what I have faced before. I did seriously consider, I almost attempted to kill myself at one point in time. And it was just because everything had gotten to me, and my
Yeah.
husband and I were in a really, we were dating at the time, but I felt like my life was great and I was waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Mhm.
And I had had a thought where I was like, my life is going great right now. We'll quit while we're ahead, which is not something that makes any sense thinking
Yeah.
back on it now. But having been at that spot and having gotten through that, I can now sit here and say, okay, everything seems to be messing up right now, but I've gotten through this much. It was actually right around my brain surgery when I started getting back into my faith as well. It was
Mhm.
actually, I think I had kind of been starting that process, but then the night before my brain surgery, when I was convinced I was going to die, um,
Yeah.
was really when that really kicked in full gear. I
Mhm.
remember I was so scared, and I looked at my husband. He was like, "What do you like? What do we want to do?" And I was like, we just need to pray." I was like, "I just need to pray. That's the only thing that's going to help."
Yeah.
So we prayed. My husband prayed. I was sobbing. Moose was there. He was licking my face. I accidentally
Oh,
trained him right around my surgery to lick my face whenever I started crying. It was an
that's
accidental
so
training I did.
sweet. Oh,
But that's how I get through a lot of stuff, is just what's my other option? And also through God, I don't think I would not be here if God was not there protecting me every step of the
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But
And it's easier to see that now looking back and seeing like
yes,
in your darkest moment, I am very thankful that you did not end your life, because now like your
yes,
testimony is that much more powerful, and
yeah,
you can see it now. Like obviously at the time it's hard to
exactly.
realize the purpose of all
Yeah,
these struggles and the purpose of all the feelings, but that's that's amazing.
yes. And then
Oh my gosh.
there's another part of everything now where I can look back and I can say, okay, I have been in my darkest moments. I have been in all of these hard times. And right now I'm living in what I prayed for what I hoped for, what I wished for
Yeah,
years. I am living that now.
that's amazing.
So what's to say that what I am hoping for the future won't happen.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is just looking forward and realizing that that headache felt like it was going to last forever. They told me it might last forever, and it didn't. It ended. It was just a period of my life. And if that piece that felt like it would last forever ended, then all the stuff we're dealing with now probably will as well. And I won't say that I think that all the time. I have certainly been in it. I have, while my husband is gone, I have been in those periods where I call him. And the second I hear his voice, I just start sobbing. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Everything is stressful. The animals are
Mhm.
stressing me out. School is stressing me out. I can't do this. There was also actually, there was a period while he was gone that we were no contact with his family for about a month and a half.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's all good now. We figured that
Okay.
out. But we
But
were
just
no
extra
contact with them for a
stress
little
to
while.
add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, wait, let me pause you. I need to go back to what you said because something you just said was so profound. And I feel like that's so beautiful. And I love your honesty saying, like, you don't always practice feeling that way. But, like, hold on. Can you go back and say it again? That was so good. Um, how did you say it?
I was gonna say, which,
Oh, the headache. You said you felt like the headaches were gonna last forever. Can you say that part again or like explain that again? How you
yeah. So
felt with that?
if I always felt like my headache was going to be forever. That was my life for 5 years was just headache. I was in pain. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And so I can look back on it now and I can realize that was my whole life. That was everything that I was dealing with was the headache. And if that can end and I can get through that, five, I'm only 21, so I'm have a ton of life left to experience, but
Yeah.
so far,
So
five
far.
of the worst years of my life
Yeah.
because of the pain. If I can get through that, then a couple of weeks of stress from the army or a month and a half of not talking with my in-laws because of a miscommunication, those are going to end. They'll
Yeah.
end one way or the other. The stressful times are either going to pass because I forget about them, or they will pass
Hmm.
because I figure out how to solve them. But they will pass one way or the
That's
other.
so beautiful. That is so beautifully said. And I feel like that's something maybe just me. I really needed to hear that. But that is like I need that reminder. That's really amazing. And again, like the fact that you have a grasp of this concept so early in life that like you have that like I said resilience that you're gonna get through anything the army throws your way. Like the most of this was
Yeah.
pre-army, so anything
Yeah.
the military life throws your way, you have this mindset of like I can do hard things. I can get through this. That's amazing.
I just say in the moment, a lot of the stuff feels big. And I
Yeah.
still deal with that. Like a lot of the stuff, like my husband was supposed to come home for 2 weeks to go to another school in the middle of this deployment. And that
Mhm.
didn't happen. That approval for that got revoked about 5 days before his flight was going to happen.
Oh my
And
gosh.
in the moment, I was somehow, I mean, I was mad. I was
Yeah.
crying. I was like, this sucks.
Yeah. Understandable.
But also, I was like, okay, it didn't happen. There's nothing we can do to change that. We'll sit in the it sucks for a couple minutes, for maybe a day or two, and then we're going to move on because what am I going to do about it now?
Yeah.
And that has that has also helped. It's just being able to acknowledge that sometimes you need to just sit in whatever you feel. And I've learned to let myself do that. For a long time with my headache, um, it was incredibly painful to cry because it would make my
Mhm.
headache worse. So I
Wow.
bottled every single emotion for years. I was essentially numb. I was not myself.
Mhm.
My husband and my whole family could tell you just how much I changed from the surgery, just not having the headaches anymore, actually being able to just be myself. When I moved down here, I had to learn who I was again, and I'm still working on that.
Yeah. But now you're
But
able to feel
I can
everything.
feel and I
Yeah.
can cry and I can sit there and cry for a couple of hours and then pick myself up and say, okay, we cried. Nothing we can do to change the situation. Let's move on, figure out what we're going to do next. And I am still working on that. My husband helps me with that as well. But that's how I try to get through a lot of stuff is I let myself sit in it. I let myself feel whatever I need to feel and then pick myself up and I move on.
Yeah. That's good. And that makes so much sense. Like hearing that you like kind of bottled up a lot of emotion. It makes so much sense that you had so many mental health struggles during that time because it's hard to process emotions when you can't properly feel them. And so that's a
Yeah.
really amazing lesson as well.
Yes. I also had to learn how to feel emotions again.
Yeah.
That's a weird one. You have to learn what it feels like to be sad,
Hmm.
and that is a little strange.
Yeah. Especially having gone through like your teenage years and like very early, like 19, 20 years old. Like I know for me, I kind of hit like those big puberty like emotions a little later, like 20 years old. I That's when I had all the crazy mood swings and that I can't even imagine like going through like feeling all those things that teenagers and 20-year-olds like feel
Yes.
and
I
having to
also,
control it so much.
yeah, I am actually dealing with a part of that now because I also have endometriosis and I was put on
That's
hormonal birth
right.
control, the pill, for ooh, 3.5 years. It started when I was in high school. And so I've just recently, I came off of it probably like 10 months ago now, something like that, because my husband and I are talking about having kids. And I now have had a normal
Yeah.
cycle, and I didn't know what my normal was. And so
Yeah.
I'm now dealing with all of those mood swings that you get used to dealing with in high school and
In high school.
college.
Yeah.
And I'm dealing with those now.
So it's
And
just
that's
all a
just
learning
another fun
process.
thing to deal with. On top of
Yeah.
everything else, now trying to figure out, okay, I get incredibly mad the week before my period. How do I handle that so that I
Yeah.
don't rip someone's head off?
Okay. And
And
I have to ask you, this is one of my favorite questions because this is something our family has specifically been learning a lot about. Not just me, but my kids, my husband. We are practicing self-regulation. Like when we feel angry, because I don't know if it's just, I just had the third baby. And after her, I also get so angry at everybody. And I am learning about self-regulation and that sometimes I like for me, sometimes I just need to stick my head in the freezer and it like
oh, that's a good
it's
one.
almost like an ice bath, but just for my face. And I just like
Hmm.
can breathe. I'm like, okay, you know what? The world is not so bad. But like when you're feeling these big things, have you experimented or have you found something that works for you that's like a good self-regulation tool or something that you use?
I have I have healthy ones and I have unhealthy ones. The
Okay.
healthy ones, I work out or I most don't listen. I take my dog for a walk. He knows the word.
Yeah.
I normally spell it. Um, so I'll take him out. I'll just do something to get my body moving.
Okay.
Um, if I can't do that, like if I start to like get anxious or something in a meeting or something, I'll fidget a lot. And I am still working on making that fidget not scratching myself because I itch my hand like this. And
Okay.
I have scratched myself raw before to the point that it's
Oh my
bleeding
gosh.
because I've been so anxious. It's bad. So I like I said, I have healthy ones, I have unhealthy ones, but
Hmm.
we're working on the healthy ones.
Gotcha. Have you ever seen those like fidget rings that you
I
get
had
that
one
would
and I
be
don't know where it is.
okay.
My
That
mother-in-law
would be good.
actually gave me one and I lost it. I don't remember where
Aw.
it is. So I also have necklaces. My husband gives me necklaces that have pearls in them. Two reasons for that. One is the pearl is a gem, a stone that is made from pressure. It is
Mm-hmm.
sand that is like pressure to create it, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that a lot.
I feel like that's
But
really
also
beautifully
they're
symbolic.
smooth. They're smooth, which means I can just hold them and just like rub my fingers along them, and it's also calming. He also just bought me a worry stone
Oh,
as an extra fidget, just something
yeah.
smooth to hold.
That's really cool. I like that. I've never heard that about, or I've never really thought about that about pearls before. Like they're made from pressure, and it's something so
Yeah.
beautiful and smooth that comes out of that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Annie, I feel like I just learned so much from you. You dropped some like beautiful knowledge and nuggets that you've learned through everything you've gone through. And I know, like you said, it's you're not done living this amazing life and you're going to keep
Mhm.
learning and growing. I can't wait to see what God has in store for you because it's incredible. And we need to stop there because I don't know if I'll have time for the whole episode, but we may just have to
Yeah.
talk again someday. Because I know you have
Yes.
even more you've gone through and more that you've learned. And I'm really grateful that we finally got the chance to actually sit down and
Yeah.
talk and share. This was so great.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It's great. And I know Moose has been a little bit of a bother,
No,
but
he's wonderful. Thank you, Moose, for being here on Military Wife Life and Strife. I know you are learning about this whole military life too, and I appreciate your wisdom.
he
He's so
is.
sweet. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. Oh, that was incredible. Thank you so much for listening. I'm really grateful for you all tuning into this podcast. If you would like to hear more interviews and more stories about military life, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend. Go follow me on Instagram, Military Wife Life Strife, and tell me your story. Message me on there. Tell me what you'd like to hear about. Tell me who you would like to hear from. This is Heather signing off. I will catch you guys next time.